Hi everyone, and welcome back to GISC 125, Mapping and Spatial Thinking. And today I want to discuss what a map is and several common types of maps. So we all probably have an understanding of what a map is, but it's important to understand the what and why of maps. So maps are much more than a tool to help you get from one place to another. They can define problems, help people reach solutions, and ultimately spur action. So a simple definition is what a map is a representation of a place. So it's a representation of a place. So this carries two important implications that are sometimes neglected. So a map is not an objective depiction of reality. It is a symbolic interpretation or a model of reality of a place, and highlights the relationships between elements in space, either perceived or actual. So it reflects choices, biases, and agendas of the map maker. So when you see or make a map, think critically about it. What does the map show? What does it omit, and why? How were the data collected and manipulated to produce the end result? Those are only a couple of the things that affect how a map ultimately is interpreted by its reader. So the practice of creating a map is much more about removing things as depicting them. So a map does not and cannot represent everything in the place. Things must be omitted, simplified, and so forth to make the map make any kind of sense. So this is how a map achieves clarity and usefulness. It strips away details of the world so that the map's purpose shines through. So maps fall into two categories. So reference maps emphasize the location of spatial phenomena such as counties, cities, rivers, etc. Chances are the maps that you use most in your life are reference maps, street maps, for example, Google Maps, that help you kind of see where things are. Other common reference maps emphasize physical landscapes. Think of like topographic maps or maps of a national park. Thematic maps, on the other hand, emphasize the spatial pattern of geographic attributes or statistics about places and relationships between places. For example, while a reference map might show the location of cities, a thematic map might also represent the population of those cities. So a reference map might show bank locations, while a thematic map shows the average income in an area. It's the difference between mapping places and mapping data. So thematic maps are almost always associated with some kind of storytelling of one kind or another. Thematic maps map data. They map statistics. And that's an important distinction. So here we can see precipitation rates, and so we're underlining this, we're mapping what? We're mapping data. We'll also see poverty rates of the population by county. Again, we are mapping data, we're mapping statistics. So these are two examples of thematic maps. So in this course, we're going to be focusing on thematic mapping. And cartographers use many methods to create thematic maps, but we'll look at four of the more common types here. But you should also read about the other types in the required readings. So in these four thematic maps show where people live in Oregon, but each map uses a different method to show that distribution. So for example, we'll start with dot density map, where one dot represents a certain number of people. So one dot might represent 1,000 people. It's up to the cartographer what that one dot's going to represent. So we can see quickly spatial patterns. We can see around the Seattle area there's high population density, and as you move kind of eastward, the population density decreases. The more common type, and the one that you're going to be making mostly in this class, are choropleth map. And so here each county is shaded a color to show the density or the number of people per square mile. So the symbol covers an entire county, but it does not mean that people live everywhere inside that county, right? So you can take this King County, for example. It doesn't mean that it's evenly distributed. They might live in a cluster within that county, but a thematic map of a choropleth map is going to show the whole state, or excuse me, the whole county of that population density. Then there's also graduated circle. One circle represents how many people live in that county. So the smaller the dot, there is 10,000 people, and the larger the dot, there's 1 million people. So you can quickly see where people live. And an isopleth map is one. The map shows a continuous distribution of the population. So those are kind of 4 of the more common types. For this class, you're probably going to be strictly dealing with choropleth or graduated circle maps. So I want to show you kind of a quick understanding of how a choropleth map can be made. So here we have Toronto census tracts kind of in the darker green color. And we'll talk more about what census tracts are, but they're these units of area devised by the U.S. Census Department. And within a census tract, there are a given number of people. And here we can show the number of people per census tract. And it's not a very convenient way of mapping data. It's hard to see. You certainly can't identify any patterns. So here we can make a choropleth map, and we are showing the population, the number of people. So the darker the area, the more people. The lighter shaded areas, there are fewer people. So is this map of any use? Not really. Basically, you're just mapping the total or raw number of people, which you don't want to do. Because generally speaking, the larger the census tract is, geographically wise, the more people there's going to be there. So we can kind of quickly see this, for example, here. Very big census tract, and here, other places, they're smaller and there's less people. So mapping raw numbers is not useful for making a choropleth map. Here is a population density, and now we're mapping the people per square kilometer. Much more useful map. So we can see kind of the significant change in where people are kind of located in terms of density, which makes sense. The University of Toronto is down in here, lots of students, and so forth. So when you're making a choropleth map, make sure you map rates. And that's what this map is talking about. Choropleth map. Map rates, not totals, not raw numbers. And here we are, we're showing unemployment rates. So again, you're showing the rate. So we can see in Central California, the rate of unemployment is very high. This is kind of all agricultural. You can see other areas here, these darker reds. A lot of these are Indian reservations, and then the South. So the gist of making a choropleth map is you always want to map rates, some kind of percentage. So people per square mile, number of 5-year-olds as a rate of all children, something like that. So that was a little bit about maps and the different types of maps.